Okay, so for this week's experiment, we are going to be making pretty much a rocket almost. And to do this, we are going to be using some pasta, some hydrogen peroxide, a lighter, yeast, and a mason jar. I've gone ahead and gotten all of that, so let me show you. We've got mason jar, we've got our hydrogen peroxide, we've got our yeast. I've got it in this cup right here, or bowl. And yeah, and so for this, I'm going to dismantle the lid, and for this, we're going to be putting the pasta in the lid. So I'm going to need to make a little hole in the top of the mason jar lid. So let me go ahead and do that real quick. So it looks like I'm just going to put a hole right in there, and then we're going to fit the pasta through the hole. Try and get this without it breaking. Alright, so just like that, we've got the pasta through the mason jar lid just like that, and we're going to put it on top when we do the reaction just like this. We are not going to use this. We can screw it on. If we did that, it could cause a lot of pressure in here to build up, and the previous video that I watched said it could explode. I don't know if it'd be that strong, but I'm not going to try that, so we will keep the lid off, and I'll just hold it like that as we do the experiment. So I've got this fresh bottle of hydrogen peroxide. The yeast was a little bit old. We had it in the fridge. It was previously used to make homemade bread, so hopefully this works still. I did not go out and get more yeast, so we'll check and we'll try and see if it works, and if not, we'll still know what happens behind the reaction. So I'm going to go ahead and fill up the mason jar with the hydrogen peroxide. I'm going to show it a little bit. And of course there's a seal. Back on. I'm going to fill it up. Alright, so we're going to go about 150 milliliters to 200. This is a bigger mason jar than they used in the video. Alright, there's that. I'll put this back up. So pretty much we're going to put the yeast in this, put the lid on, and hope that it does indeed work. After we do that, we're going to take the lighter and we will light the noodle. So the pasta is actually the fuel for this reaction, and then the fumes coming out are going to be what makes it happen. But for this, we're actually going to light the piece of pasta on fire. Alright, so I'm going to dump in the yeast. Alright, the yeast is in. We'll mix it a little bit. Hopefully it works. So you can see from that we've got the yeast in there. It looks like it's not doing much. We'll go ahead and we will light this and see what happens. It's not bubbling like it was in the video I watched, so don't know if the yeast is too old or we used it to make homemade bread during the winter. Let's see. It's not doing much. I'll give it a little bit longer to see if this will work. If not, we'll just talk about it anyways. So, it doesn't look like it's working. It's not bubbling. Bubbling like it did in the video I watched. So possibly the reasoning behind why this might not have worked is because the yeast was too old, or I'm not sure. I just did not have enough time to go out and get fresh yeast for this experiment, so I just used what we had. But pretty much the reaction behind this is the yeast, when it mixes with the hydrogen peroxide, it causes the yeast to actually break down and decompose, which is a chemical reaction that will occur, and it causes the hydrogen peroxide to change into water and oxygen gas. The oxygen gas is what we then would see coming out. That's why the bubbling would happen. And then we light the noodle to be the actual energy or the fuel for this reaction. So really the chemical reaction is happening between the yeast and the hydrogen peroxide, and that's causing it to break down, like I said, into the oxygen gas and into the water. And then obviously the oxygen gas would want to start to escape, so that's where we would want it to come out the whole of that we made for the noodle, and then light that on fire, and we should see that like rocket kind of simulation effect take place. For this wheat, it did not happen, unfortunately, but we did give it a good try. I'm gonna suspect that it was probably because of the old yeast. I thought it would work, but clearly we did not see it. Did not bubble or do anything like I saw in the video I watched earlier. So I'm gonna go ahead and speculate that that was probably the reasoning why. But we still learned what happens during this reaction and everything like that. So sorry it didn't work, but gave it a good shot, and hopefully next week's experiment works a little bit better. Thank you.